Good day. You know what today is? It is the Impact Podcast Day. So excited to be before you. So first, let me say hi to my lady friends. Hi, Miss Damaris. Hi, Dr. Obiyama. How are you?
Hey, 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 hey,
Hola.
hey.
Hey. Happy Thursday. Happy
Yes,
October. This is my month. I
yes,
love this month.
yes. So much to unpack this month.
Agreed.
Yes.
Agreed. Yeah, so much has happened. I feel like I was just saying to the ladies, it feels like it has been forever. We see one another for the podcast, but then we see one another in between, but it always still feels like a long time. It's like,
It
where
does.
y'all been? I know
Right.
I saw you 2 days ago, but where you
And and we just saw each other last week.
Oh no. But it seemed like we always have so much to catch up on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
We really
Right.
do though, because life be lifing.
yes, and so we don't get to unpack everything today, but this is one thing we really haven't been able to unpack, which was so the episode that we're on right now is Don't Get Left Behind. And what does that mean? I think I know that I've used the term and I've heard a lot about like getting in the room. And it sounds good. It's like, don't get left behind from all of the information and the connections and opportunities that happens in particular rooms. I don't know about you guys, but I didn't fully understand it until I started getting in some rooms. And it was like,
Mhm.
how do I get in that room? So uh,
Mhm.
we had the privilege of being in, as we are Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses alum, we were able to go to the 10-year anniversary of 10KSB, and we were in the room. I'll let one of y'all start off and tell us your experience of being in that room with hundreds of business owners across, I don't know how many industries, but so many industries. What was your takeaway?
So Damaris, I'm gonna let you go first.
Well, when I walked in, I was like, oh, and, another. I was there for the graduation, and to me, I was just like, oh, another event, right? And when I walked in, I was like, oh, this is the event. And meeting so many new people and actually seeing older faces as well, it was pretty amazing. I got to network. I think I was on network overload. And I'm going to be quite honest. Once I get I have this socialization radar that it's like when it gets filled really fast, and then I get too overwhelmed. But I didn't feel overwhelmed in this actual event. Everything was really relaxed from the beginning all the way to the end, and the way they transitioned, the way that Goldman Sachs actually was very intentional about providing opportunities and moments for us to learn new things, and also moments for us to be able to go around the room and get to meet and network with other folks as well. I thought that it was a very amazing event. I mean, I got a whole bunch of business cards. I got to share, what I do, but also listen to what other people do. And yeah, what was interesting also is like we bumped into, oh, I can't remember her name, Obiama. Um, as soon as we sat down, this particular lady, she works for a nursing care facility, and said,
Home care.
I
She has a
watch you
home
got
care.
home care. Yes, so she has a
Hmm.
home care facility. And she said, I watch you guys all the time. You guys really help us. And I thought that was so amazing. I just looked over Obiama and just smiled like, oh wow, the impact is really making impact, right? And she said that she has her staff actually listening to us as well, because all the topics that we have covered has been very relatable, and it's not, what we are doing is not accessible to her field, and it's very well needed. So I thought that was just the highlight of the night. I mean, amongst meeting all these great people in the event itself, but getting to hear that was pretty amazing to me.
Yeah,
Obiama.
I agree. I agree. So for me, um, two thoughts, two thoughts. Actually, a whole lot of thoughts, right? I want to say, as coming from a person who has done and did networking events for years, but hiding, and then coming to an event and being fully present and showing up and playing full out and really making intentional connections was different, because you can be in the room and still be absent. And there have been many rooms that I've been in because I was checking the box and I was not present at all. I was physically
Good.
there, but emotionally, I was checked out.
Yeah.
So to be in the room, in that particular room, first of all, community was there. So I was looking forward to, I'm going to see my girls. We haven't seen each other, and just being able to be in a community with the two of you, that was number one. And then number two, I knew that I was going to reconnect rather, with my cohort, with the individuals in my cohort. And it was about six of us that showed up. So that was another highlight that I looked forward to, in addition to reconnecting with some other people from other cohorts that I was aware of, and then meeting all of the new people. And then on top of that, the engagement and activities at the table, in addition to the workshops, the clinics. And then I had the opportunity to be one of the businesses that they highlighted, and I was able to have a little table and just really, really engage with all of the business owners in a way that was very impactful, that I had not had an opportunity to do in the past. So much so, I'm so looking forward to our Interconnected Impact Summit that's happening on November 4th, because what's missing is more opportunities to do what we did. What's missing is the absence of experiences, connection, and community that is meaningful, where people really can come together who are like-minded, with an intention to really do business together. So what I really appreciate about Goldman Sachs is that they really encourage us doing business together, because what we have learned and what they know, of course, is that we are stronger together, and together we are stronger. And so that's what we're going to kind of mimic and reproduce, but with our own flavor, because we are the impact on November 4th.
That, that's it, right? That's
That's
it.
it. That's
Yes,
it.
yes.
Podcast over. Nah.
I definitely, yes, I definitely resonated too, like with the first point, because talk about, listen, I would go to like the networking event to say I went to the networking event with
Right.
no real intent to network.
Yeah.
Seriously, it was like I want to go and kind of see what's going on, connect with people, but not really connect with people. Like, please don't talk to me too much. Please don't, please, because I, you know, rec- historically, right? I've been, like really shy and, like a like introvert, if you will. And to have so many people, it could feel overwhelming. I shared at some point, I'll definitely share now, remembering where I was 5 years ago when I entered the Goldman Sachs 10,000 small businesses, right? I know what I know, and I know that I know it, but explaining it, sharing it, being loud about it type thing usually is not my thing. And so I went in fairly timid, didn't really know what to expect. I'm in this room of like 20 something people, business owners. I don't know their revenue. I don't really know what I'm getting into. And at that point I didn't have the same level of confidence I do now. And I have this different perspective of who I am in the business world. But going in, I owned a child care program. I have a child care program, right? That was it. That's all I knew. I knew my revenue and everything, but there wasn't a lot of confidence behind it, because if I could be honest, my experience is a lot of times being only in within your industry, I feel like it's limiting. And so at that time, I was only around other childcare business owners. And so the conversations were very similar. We call ourselves kind of the same thing: childcare provider, home childcare provider, group provider, that kind of thing. And then we even internally kind of have those conversations of, well, what are we really? Are we practitioners, provider, right? Like all of that stuff. And so that's where I was coming from, not fully understanding who I was. Coming into this room 5 years later, though, right? So having the tools that I had, I was a lot more clear about who I was and how I contributed to the economy. Like I already know what I do in my community, so I was coming different. So what I loved about this room was, I think you had people who are coming back, even those who were in cohort 1, and we're on like cohort 30 or something,
Yes.
coming in. All of us are pretty much experiencing similar things, whether you've been doing this for 5 years, 10, 30. I think we all are coming back with so many experiences and so much wisdom, and we were able to share it. But for me, I was coming back seeing the growth that I had personally. And I think that's what was so powerful. One thing, it was so many powerful things, but it was powerful to be able to come in with my head held high, to say, let me tell you about who I am and what I do, whereas though I didn't have that before. And I think that's another reason we are hosting the Interconnected Summit, is because everyone doesn't have that opportunity. And to be able to get around other industry leaders, other business owners, and confidently say who I am and what I do, I think we need more opportunities to do that. And that was something that I realized no one else may have thought that, right? They may not have seen, oh, childcare provider. It's like, okay, let me tell you about what I do. And so that growth portion to me was huge. Was huge.
It's interesting, Leah, when I saw the connections between you and your cohort members, and also Biama with the hugs and everything. I had maybe about two or three people from my cohort there, um, and we didn't gain that type of relationship, for the exception of me and one person that we got a little tight there. But we were the second cohort right after the pandemic, right? Or right through the pandemic. So the first cohort was right when the pandemic hit. They went into virtual immediately, and then we were the second one. So it was really harder to connect. But what was interesting was that everyone had a very similar reason for being there, right? Was we need to learn how to pivot our business practices and everything post through this pandemic so we could stay alive. So we all had that very much in common. And being, I remember, I believe it was two child care centers in my cohort, myself and another person. um, and I would hear all these other businesses and industries, and they were facing the same thing we were, right? But we were, as childcare facilities, on a leverage higher than them because we were deemed personnel that needed to be what is it called this again? Oh
Essential.
my gosh, essential. Thank you, essential personnel, right? So I got to reopen my businesses, in order to provide that emergency care, so essential employees for the city can get back to work, right? Because without childcare, they can't get back to work. So I was like one up above, if I may. My business wasn't interrupted. I was still continuing where others in my cohort was facing that. So it was interesting to see and to go through that with them, and to understand that we're not in this alone. Like every business actually suffers. But one thing that I did realize very soon, I always knew, I just didn't know how to word it, and I didn't have the courage, right, to follow it. Is that as childcare providers, we always identify as family childcare, group childcare, center childcare, or I'm a daycare provider, or whatever it is that you're doing. But I started saying I'm a business owner first. right? Because I love what I do, but I love money first, right? I love what I do. I love creating impacts. I love everything, but without the money and getting paid in the business aspect, that's not going to happen, right? I can't continue what I do. So I made sure that my numbers were right. I made sure that my connections, my marketing, my negotiation, shout out to Maury, all of this stuff, I made sure that I soaked up every word and then some from every meeting. I have books and notes and notes and notes, and then started writing and rewriting content to help support my organization because I was coming back from this. I was determined to come back strong from this pandemic, right? So those are the experiences. And, back at the event a few weeks ago, I knew I wasn't going to see a lot of my folks there. I probably saw two, maybe three, because it was virtual. I really hope that and wish that somehow we can take it back into time, and the Goldman Sachs would consider doing a reunion just for those pandemic, for those folks, to give them an opportunity to network the way all other cohorts networked, right? I believe it was like three or four. Um, so again, to the networking event that we're gonna have, I feel like, it's an amazing opportunity for folks to, like you guys said, be in a room with other people, but get to really listen and understand that a you're not in this by yourself. Everybody's facing, you know, different issues, with their businesses for whatever it is, and b what are they doing that's successful that I can implement in my program to help me become successful, right? So I'm excited about giving and having that opportunity, right, to have those deep conversations and plug in the whys, right? I feel like we need to always revisit. We talk about this all the time amongst each other, but I feel like folks will have the opportunity to really get the why again, right? The whys, because I think a lot of people are missing that more now than ever. So that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Yeah. Especially bringing up relationships like that right there. It's powerful. And you're right. Our cohort, we stayed close. Like we've been in contact. We actually, you know what? I'm happy you brought that up. During the pandemic, we held calls every single week. Every week we had calls to kind of hold one another up and to support one another. Um, Interestingly, that's where we called it Black Girl Magic, and so it was six of us, and we went out together. We did kind of little round robin. How are you doing in your business? What do you need? Um, Not only even when I started sharing my consulting work, at some point not too long ago, two of them contacted like, listen, here's what I need for my business. Let's work together. I know someone in my cohort. I needed the plaque for my mom and stuff. I know that they do all the awards and stuff, and so all the things that Goldman Sachs set up to happen. Like I've seen it. I've seen it come alive. The one thing I definitely think was beneficial for me, because the program is about like growth, and so we all have growth plan. I was literally living my growth plan while we were learning it. So I was opening my second site and implementing everything we learned in real time. And that was so impactful for me. So we went there, we there all day, and then I could come back and I had a week to implement it and bring back questions and, kind of find out and listen in on. That's the other thing about being in a room is it's not always about talking. It's about listening and pulling in what other people ask, what other people say. And that community conversation, that's what I'm calling it, even for our interconnected summit, is we'll also have like a community conversation where, based on this one question or this problem or this situation, let's talk about, what does this mean for you? How have you navigated this? And I don't know, again, if we have enough of those spaces where, well, not even to say in my industry, as a business owner, because that's what we have in common, right? Regardless of, we have children, and you may be a therapist with clients, we're still business owners. And to kind of share, oh, okay, pricing. Here's how we navigated pricing, profit margins and things like that, succession planning and exit strategy. All of that stuff is real to each and every one of us who are business owners. And so when we're having those conversations, it's like, I haven't thought about that. Oh, that's good. How can we connect and have that conversation more? We were standing in line ready to eat, and we happened to, who was talking? Was it you? It was myself and someone else talking, and we were blocking someone from getting past us. And it's like, oh, I'm so sorry. We end up talking, and oh my goodness, that connection. We had such a great conversation. Come to find out, we knew someone in common, who we do business with in common. And then lastly, we started talking about certification. And she was like, "Are you women certified?" I was like, "No, that whole process." She was like, "Oh my goodness, I've done it numerous times. Call me." And she followed up on LinkedIn and was like, "Listen, don't forget, let's connect." That's what we mean by getting in the room, because that resource that you need is in there, right? It could be that
Yes.
one thing that someone shared that changes the trajectory of your business. Or, I know how to do that. I have this resource. I have this resource, or let me show you how. And that's the power of getting in the room.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I want to echo both what you and Demara said, because too oftentimes we can find ourselves isolated, and when we either self isolate or choose to feel isolated, we also lose out on what's possible. We also lose out on the potential. And so being in a room encompasses so many things. And to all the things that you said, when we were in the when we did the breakout activity around pricing, to the point you made about not just childcare providers, but we're business owners, everybody in the room had something to share around pricing that all of us, regardless of the industry that we were in, could relate to. And then the activity that they had us do, we was like, oh yeah, we can apply that to this and we can apply that to that. And so those are the type of opportunities, because then there was someone sitting next to Damaris that she was talking to, Dr. Scott specifically. And Damaris is like, well, you need to connect with Obiama because this is why, and so that conversation happened. And what happens is you don't know what you don't know when you're not in a room, and you don't know who your next partner, who your next collaborator, who your next answer is, who your next supplier is, because you're not in the room. And so not only is your presence important, but what you need is in the room, right? And so that was something else that was echoing. That's why this summit that we're doing in November is not going to be a one and done. This is something that we'll probably do once a quarter because it's needed, because there are not other spaces. One of the things that we see collectively as a downfall, I think, is that we'll have a great event, and not us specifically, but let's just say that there's a great event like the one that we attended, or even like the one that was last Saturday, with the ECE voices. It'll be this really great, powerful event. You will meet all the people and the momentum will be high. But when there is no follow up, when there is no continuation, when there is, I'll see you at the next one, I'll see you next month, or I'll see you, or I'm a follow up, or no accountability, that momentum fades away and everybody go into their corners or into their zip codes. And we don't hear or see from them again into the next big whatever. And so I'm very hopeful and excited that this summit will be something that we get to create on a quarterly basis, so that the gap of being connected, interconnected to resources and people and opportunity, right? It begins, that gap begins to close. And so I just really want to encourage all of you who are listening. Please, please, please check your calendar November 4th. You really want to figure out what it is you need to move to be in a room. And I'm going to also say this because even last year, so what came up in my timeline is last year we were it was the bigger Goldman Sachs where it was everybody from all over this world basically who came together, and we met in Washington, which was another powerful, powerful, powerful
Oh my
experience.
gosh, we had such a great time
We
there.
had we had such a great time. Now here's the thing, talking about moving things around. When it happened last year, and I didn't realize it until this year, when it happened last year, I was in the Bahamas. And I left the Bahamas a day earlier so that I could get to Washington because I needed to be in the room. And so when I was back with some of those same people, we weren't in the Bahamas, we were in Mexico, and they were doing this activity. They were doing a series of activities that I had no point of reference to because I wasn't there. And everybody was like, "But we saw you. You was here last year." And I was like, I don't remember this. Like what? How I missed? How did I miss this? Right? And they was like, cause you left, cause you had to go to the Goldman Sachs thing, right? Everybody remember was like, you didn't stay the last day. You left a day earlier because you wanted to, get to Goldman Sachs. And so this year, I didn't have to leave a day earlier because Goldman Sachs was 2 days later. But my point for sharing that is that sometimes you have to make sacrifices. No, you can't be in multiple places at the same time, but you definitely have to think about where are you best needed and how is your presence going to have the most impact depending on where you choose to be. So,
Absolutely. I
yeah,
so agree with you. We've been invited to so many spaces, right? And then I'm like, oh, okay. How we're not octopuses. We're you know business people. We have responsibilities, but we're also mothers, wives, right? So we have responsibilities in our homes as well. And I literally had to do exactly this year what you just finished saying. Like I said, okay, I am going to be in the room where I feel like I'm going to get more out of it and make more impact out of it, right? And then hopefully I can get to the other rooms next year. Leave it for next year. Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, and I know something
Yeah,
that I had learned and applied this time, which is why you mentioned it, Obiama, about being present. I learned about being intentional about networking, like preparing yourself to network. Okay, how many business cards am I going to share or exchange? How many people to, at least, right? Having a goal of the networking opportunity, because that's what it is an opportunity. So how many exchanges am I going to have? So I remember us being Oh my God. I remember us being in the room, African American Chamber of Commerce event we were
yes,
connected to. Yes. And I hadn't been aware of like the little electronic business card. So prior to, right, I'm trying to
they're the
figure out how
best things ever. I need one. I
so
need
I'm
one.
like, oh my, because we already had this summit planned, and we were like, so when we get right intentionality, when we get to the event, right, we're going to make sure we share and we're going to start recruiting people. So again, guys, don't think we're playing small. We are intentional about bringing people in the room to connect with you and you with them. So we wanted to make sure we went into the room. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to make sure I have this information without trying to print some business cards. So that was one, just being intentional. And so coming up with like the little barcode. So we had a little barcode to connect with people to say, here's what we're having, would you like to be a part? Oh my goodness, I heard your story, or we would love to hear more about you. So I say all that to say, when you are going um, into a room, and I'm gonna take a step back too. I remember teaching. ISIS had an event, her first event, a nonprofit event last year, and I was teaching the ladies about showing up. So when I say getting in the room, that doesn't always mean this large room of people. That means
Hmm.
showing up every day. right? Being intentional about how you are showing up, what you look like, how you are representing yourself, because regardless of if you are an entrepreneur or not, you are a brand in yourself. Like you are literally a brand. And so when you're
Yes.
showing up, you're showing up accordingly. I need y'all to know I was intentional about the blazer I wore. I wore that. I knew that it spoke something. And so I don't know if I shared that with you guys before. Y'all know, like I'm not all loud and stuff, right? And so I kind of, reserve, but I dress louder than I am. And so a lot of times I kind of speak through what I'm wearing. So when I come into a room, what I'm wearing kind of enters first, and that's kind of how it. I've always called it a piece of art and kind of my voice, if you will. So I showed up in a particular way, so that I could have conversations with people. I don't know if that's my Sasha Fierce with Beyonce, and that's my thing, but so tap into your superpower. Tap into your superpower. But yeah, just the intentionality and being in these spaces of whether it is face to face, one on one, having a conversation is also getting in the room and allowing someone to see you and remember you. So show up every time, whether again it's a large room of people or if it's just walking by someone and you're holding the door open for them to get in, and it's like, oh my goodness, I like your shoes, and now I see you have the pin on. It's like, oh my goodness, that conversation is sparked, and now that's a relationship. So please don't think that networking and getting in the room only means I'm going to an event. You show up every day with your brand, ready to connect with someone, because they literally can be, again, the catapult to your business.
That's it right there.
That's my
That's
share.
it right there. So if this conversation did not move you to take action, I really don't know what else will, because I know that the three of us have absolutely benefited personally and professionally from showing up and making an investment. So much so, Leah, you and I talked about this last week, I think, about even prior to Goldman Sachs, just some of the other things that you've ventured out to, or and stepped into, that was outside of childcare and also outside of Pennsylvania, and how one conversation, right, with somebody else prompted you to say, oh, let me kind of step my feet into here, and it's been game on ever since. But if you didn't have that conversation, and if you did not take the leap, take the step, right, you might not be right here right now.
You're absolutely right. Literally, literally. And I swear, in those conversations, I'm thinking about, first of all, I'll say this because it's connected with a couple of things. Share your thought or idea or even your fear with someone, not everybody. Share it with someone who can hold you accountable or pour into you, right? I made a statement to you a couple years ago and it turned into like a lot of stuff. First of all, I told y'all before, don't share anything with Obiama. It's gonna be like, all right, cool. When is it? What's the date? And it's like I was just thinking, but I was in a room last night virtually, and I typically don't share. I typically don't share. And I was thinking of something. I had something that I want to do and that I'm working on, and I was like, well, let me ask the question. Let me just ask it, and I'm so happy that I did because they gave so much insight. Like I was totally thinking about it wrong because I had never done it. And my thinking was not that it was bad thinking, but I didn't have all the information to make a decision. And it was like, oh my gosh, thank you for sharing. And then we ended up going into breakout rooms. I wasn't even supposed to be on the call. My husband went out and I was like, cool, I got a little time. My kids down. I had a moment. I was like, let me get on the call. And we went into a breakout room, ended up seeing someone from Lisa Nichols event. I was like, oh my gosh. We start talking, sharing information and sharing ideas. So the one woman had some great ideas about having conversations with your daughter. So she does work on how to improve your conversations with your daughters. I was like, me, I got all daughters. I was like, let's talk about it. And someone else said, I'm thinking you should probably connect with Jack and Jill organizations. I was like, what? Jack and Jill organizations, it's a particular demographic that has funding. It's daughter, mother, baby. I was like, and sometimes we don't think about it or make connections, but if you just share in the right room, gosh, that's it. That's it.
Uh, and
That's
sometimes those rooms are not even in the areas you service at.
not at all. Not all these people are all
That's
different
why we're so
places.
intentional about coming out of Philly. Because let me tell you, I went, I got disconnected. I'm so sorry. I just came back. Um, I went to the PA Latino Convention Center. I don't know what I was going to go do there, but I knew that I was intentional and I kept amping myself up, right? Because I'm one of those people that don't like to talk to other people. It's just an uncomfortable thing for me, right? Socializing,
You're not
networking.
alone.
So,
You're not
so
alone.
what I did was to hold myself accountable. I took 45 business, I think it was like 50 business cards. I counted them on purpose, right? I think it was 45 or 50. And I said, I'm not coming home until half of these cards I speak to at least half of these cards, meaning I was going to give out my business 25 out of that 50 stock business cards. Listen, I went in that room. The first five was uncomfortable, but once I lit the sixth, the seventh, the eighth, by the time I got home, I counted my business card. I have five business cards left. Five. So that means I went over, right, what my comfort zone, because I was pushing myself to be able to talk to people. Needless to say, I met so many amazing people, so many, like you said, Aaliyah, having even like nonprofit organizations here, you should be really connecting to these people, or these people are actually here in this room. Let me introduce you. I was with the superintendent of the school district, like in my table. I was with the state representative, the first Latina state representative, right? And it was pretty cool to like really sit there and just be me, because I'm always going to be me. I try not to be somebody else. I speak the way I speak, and this is what you get, and you don't get upset. um,
That's
but
what people
it
love
was
about you.
is what it is, and I'm like, this is how I feel. This is what we do. How can we help, or how can you help, right? Or how can we collaborate, right? How can we play together in that sandbox? And I'm pretty direct, and I've noticed that before my direct being so direct, and so I guess people see me like bossy, right? And it's really not that way. It's just the way I speak, right? I got a big heart, but I'm focused, and I don't know how to look at anything but what my goal is, right? So I don't have room for sidebarring, or I've trained myself not to go to the side, but definitely the goal. That's the goal. If it's that, that's where I'm going. And if you're not helping me get there, then you're gonna have to wait right here until I got time to talk to you, or whatever. But it was pretty amazing. And if I look at myself last year or from 2 years ago to who I am today,
Yep.
oh my gosh.
Yes. And that's we talk about it all the time. That's the 5 4 3 2 1 go.
Yes.
Right? Like I,
Go.
I don't know if any of you have ever read Mel Robbins' The 5 Second Rule. I read it a couple years ago, and when I tell you that it literally is a don't think about it, don't overthink it. You talk yourself out of it. 5 4 3 2 1 go. Hi, how are you? And like you just jump in there. And like
Yep.
there the Mara said, after you do it the first couple of times, you're like, it is not that bad.
Mm-mm.
It's not,
Mm-mm.
listen, my heart used to race when we first started this podcast, and it would be like a minute before if you weren't on. I was like, "Oh my god, when am I going?" I said, "She not showing. She not showing." Now I'm ready. I'm ready to go. Like, what we do? It's
Yeah.
no, it's fun. Then you start having fun. You find your groove because you're also not trying to be like anyone else. Like the mayor said, you're showing up authentically, and it gets easy. It gets easy. So I agree with you. Just jump and do it. Just jump and do it.
Five,
And
And
it's
four, three, two, one.
Five, four, three, two, one. And so I want to kind of close us out with this because I think it's important. And we don't do this a lot, but I think it's important, especially as we are attracting new listeners and new followers to the podcast and just all these great opportunities as we are expanding. But our story, when we talk about the impact, the three of us, right, met each other at different times years ago, years ago. So just for a second, just think about how, and I say this all the time from the perspective of it's better to have a resource that you don't need than to have a need and not have the resource. And so the three of us, well, I met Damaris at community college, and I want to say, Aaliyah, I met you through the provider committee through CCDI. I want to say that's kind of like where we probably met the first time. But I had already been working with your mom prior to you and I meeting, so that we had a kind of easy, pretty much relationship just because of the foundation of your mom. But the Maris and I, we took classes together at CCP, right, Damaris? We
Yeah,
was
and
in
then
an
years
associate
later, you ended
degree.
up becoming my professor for the director's credential. I was like, okay, this is weird.
Right, right, right. Exactly. But thinking about, so I was at community in 2002. I got my associate's degree in 2007, right? We're in 2023, y'all. And then I was the chairperson of the provider committee for CCDI somewhere around 2007, 2008, and I want to say, and I did that for 5 years. So I'm going to say probably from 2005 to 2010, somewhere around that space, and then having to you and I, Aaliyah, we did our master's degree together, right? And so who knew that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I would have the opportunity to work with you all in the way in which we are working now and create and do the wonderful things. And so it just again go back to the summit, the impact, and not being left behind. Because had we not made those meaningful connections when we did, we would not be able to have the synergy and the chemistry that we have now.
Absolutely right. It's so interesting. I know we have like one more minute. It's so interesting you brought up CCDI in the event, the other room we were in last week, Voices of ECE, honoring women in leadership. So many of them were there. And I felt like, right, I always feel like the little girl, right? I'm fully grown, but I was like every bit of 1 year in when I met all you guys, zero childcare experience. I didn't know what I was doing. And to see all of them, and it's like, oh my God, Tola was there. We dancing those. So much joy and everything. And it was yet another room created for us to come and celebrate one another, lift one another up, honor. And this is extremely important because I even tell staff, be very careful, especially in this industry. It is small. It is small. And you end up seeing people again. And, so many of them help me. And I thought about a lot of people who sometimes say it's kind of like a dog eat dog and no one helps you and things like that. I'm so blessed that I didn't have that experience. And I saw all of these women that I respect. And now they're like, I see what you're doing. I'm so proud of it. How can we connect? How can I help you? Even if it was just encouragement, it was hugs and stuff. And so that room also meant a lot because, again, when I say growth, like this is, like you said, it was like 2009 because I was brand new in this thing and didn't know a thing. And I told my daughter, because she was also in the room, I told her that before when I was opening the second site, I did research and I asked so many of them, could I come to their center? And they tell me how they expanded. And every one of them said yes. And all of them were in the room. And it was like, let me go say thank you and give people their flowers right now. The last thing I remember is at Pratt Street, I was early on in my years, and my stars provider is now in like a position not necessarily in a childcare program, but connected and help connect me with Regina, African American Chamber of Commerce, who we got to honor, who also is like, Aaliyah, let's schedule the conversation. We need to talk about what we're doing next. And that's the other part. That's the other part of kind of getting in the room, making connections. You're also creating advocates, especially for us in the ECE world or in any industry. Sometimes when other people aren't fully aware of what's going on in your industry, when you partner and have conversations, they now can be your advocate and say, you know what, here's a funding source, or here's a way we can connect. And it was really powerful to also have Mayor-elect Sherelle Parker in there, connecting to what's happening in ECE, and kind of speaking to, I see you guys, I see what you experience, and to see all the people in the room, it was like, the work being done is so powerful. And so, again, every time, I think, like we were talking about the 5 4 3 2 1, the more we get in the rooms, the more we like exercise those muscles, and you kind of enjoy being in the space of meeting other people and connecting. So I promise y'all, I mean, like Obiama said, look at that calendar, move some stuff around, get there. I definitely wanted to say this last thing. I promise you this. This event could very well be free. It could very well be free. Why is it not free? It's not about like getting rich or anything like that. I have found, and I know I heard it, but I have found, when you make zero investment, right? It's kind of like, oh, it's free. And then you have a bunch of people sign up and then not show up.
Yeah, there's no commitment. No
Zero
commitment.
commitment, right?
Mhm.
And so, whatever the number, because I've spent zero, I've spent 5, 10, and I've spent a lot more money to invest, to learn, to connect. And it's $97, right? I don't know about y'all, but I'm not going to say what I spend 97, but 90. I'm not even going to do that to myself. Okay. But $97 to get in the room, and one business card could, like, when I say Trump $97, like, it really is just like a small investment for commitment, for you to show up fully, so that you could get, when I say 10 return on your investment, like, come on. We also have vending opportunities, right? You have a product, you have a service. We're having free business resources. So, because sometimes it's like, oh my goodness, I didn't know the free library has so many business resources. So we're having all that, as well as opportunities for us to spend our money with one another in the room. So listen, if you know us, you already know that we don't play small. You already know that we move with excellence. And I'm gonna leave it there. So we're not trying to sell you. We're just sharing the information. So I'm just saying, November
Yeah,
4th.
it's an invitation. That's it.
That's
That's
it.
it. It's an
That is,
invitation. It's an
yeah.
invitation.
I said that was it for me. It really is. Did you have
So,
anything?
Aaliyah, put the link. Can you put the link across so they can get it, or you can add it to it?
Yes, I will definitely add it. Yep, it is. It will be in the show notes, so you'll
Okay.
actually be able to see that and register. You can register there. Share it. Don't come alone. Don't come alone. Share it with someone else. Right. Give the gift of sharing. And yeah, let's pack out the room and connect. Come, get your business cards ready. Or you know what I'll share too? I'll share some of those virtual business card links, so that you can
Hmm.
start working on and being prepared to be in the room. Pull your
Yeah.
clothes out, iron your shirt, pick your shoes out, be ready. Okay?
Oh goodness. Oh goodness.
Yes.
Listen.
So yeah,
Listen. When you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
get ready.
Right. So pay attention, y'all. Pay attention. Don't get left behind. Don't get left behind. Pay attention. Be in the room, and be in the room. That's it.
That is it. The Impact Podcast. All right. It is so great to see you again. I hope you love seeing us yet again. And we'll be seeing you soon. Check out all the details in the show notes. And thank you for joining the Impact Podcast.